Hello everyone, thank you so much for being here. Welcome to Startup Pueblo. I'm Dante, I'm one of the co-organizers. If you haven't been to Startup Pueblo before, we host this here at Brew's second Tuesday of every month, 5:37 in this room. And if you follow us on Facebook, Startup Pueblo Meetup, you can get all the relevant event details and see who our next speaker is going to be. But I'll keep it short. Our presenters for tonight, very happy for you guys to be here. You guys are not only just great leaders of your respective organizations, but also great people that I've had the pleasure of knowing. So please give it up for our presenters, Pueblo Area Chapter Credit Unions.
Come on up. Oh, here, come on up. Oh, this is a team effort here. This is one team, one dream territory. Well, hello, welcome everybody. Happy Tuesday. Hello, my name is Nathan Kay from the CEO of Meetup Works Credit Union here in town.
And I'm Leslie Shepard, I'm the CEO at Sunwest Credit Union.
I'm Elizabeth Hall, I'm a corporate lender at Ent Credit Union.
So let's so raise your hand if you're currently a member of a credit union. All right, round of applause. Love to second. So today we're talking a little bit about what is a credit union, or what's the differential behind a credit union, the cooperative spirit, cooperative principles that are built into credit unions, and then we also want to help translate that for Startup Pueblo in terms of saying how can a business and organization utilize a credit union to continue to expand benefits to their employees, to the individuals that they work with, and some of the different things in terms of saying, hey, if I'm getting ready to start a business account, things of that nature, what are some things that I need to be aware of when it comes to that process? So we're putting together our minds as a collaborative spirit, helping to engage in some of our key experts in our industry, and excited to be able to welcome that. And then along the way, we want to do some Q&A, right, and do some questions and answers to help support, to make sure that you get value out of today's session. Sound pretty cool?
Sounds good.
All right, who's ready? All right, awesome. Very cool. So, credit union difference. So, there were a couple of hands raised when it came to the credit union difference. So, what does it mean to be a member of a credit union? That's a question, yeah. Sir, what's your name?
Bob.
Bob, well, hello, Bob, otherwise known as Jack. Good to see you, sir. What does it mean to be a member of a credit union?
I look at it as being part of a family. I've been in the credit union business for 30 years, after I was in a bank.
There you go.
And it's the way people are treated. The products and services might be similar, but being able to talk to someone local and feel important.
That's pretty awesome. All right. Round of applause for Jack. Membership. What else comes in that name? So I see a hand raised over here. All right. Ownership, right? So that's one of the main fundamentals, right? So when we talk about a credit union, talk about a member owner, right? Not just a customer, right? What does that ownership factor look like? So when you establish an account with a credit union, you open your account, often it's called a share of ownership or your share of savings, where you establish a deposit. And that allows that ownership factor to kick in when it turns into a credit union. Right? So that allows you to attend our annual meetings, you can serve on board of directors, right? To be able to help make that ownership factor make a difference in terms of the community, right? Helping to show that caring factor that really adds and builds from that aspect. Right? So in retrospect, when we compare that in terms of from the bank side, right? There's former bankers that turned credit unions, right? To the exciting side here, right? Very good stuff. But we look at that and we say, okay, well that internal ownership aspect by being a member owner of a credit union, and saying, okay, well we have a democratic structure, right? To where we can help build bylaws, build rates and structures to where it supports other members in terms of a cooperative. Right? And so it's a financial cooperative that builds. And when we look at that, then we can have higher returns on savings, often lower loan rates, lower fees, and then we also return any of our income back to our members when it comes to the form of net worth. Right? So at the end of the year, if you have income or profitability, that returns back to our members, right? In the form of dividends or continuing to invest in things that help to support our members, right? We see AI, we see technology, we see a lot of different things evolving the overall financial landscape. So by returning that back into the credit union, back into that cooperative structure, you can continue to grow and say, hey, how can I be that local aspect and help reach out to our members that we serve on a daily basis. Right? So has anyone ever seen the umbrella man here before? A little credit union guy, right? In one of the original depictions of this, there were some other words that kind of came on top of it, right? So that umbrella is kind of an idea around the, what the credit union does to help protect members from different things like, fees and different structures of, predatory lending, things of that nature. So that umbrella structure, that cooperative structure, identifies what a credit union is in terms of the makeup and helping to support members and protect members from some of those things that might be out there. Right? So this is our little umbrella guy, right? And then that leads to other cooperation, right? How can we get out in the community, provide things like financial literacy, social responsibility, and helping to support other cooperatives. So we are the Pueblo area chapter of credit unions, right? So we have a few credit unions here in town, right? That's pretty cool, right? So we are people helping people. Right? And so each of the credit unions that are listed here that you see in terms of the graphic or the logo that we have here, and many of you here present, we participate in the Pueblo area chapter of credit unions, which then is a part of what's called the Go West Credit Union Association, which is a regional association, a 6-state region of credit unions, which then supports America's credit unions, right? And then we have a World Credit Union Council as well. So we see that cooperative spirit and cooperatives working together. Oftentimes, we'll have conversations together. We'll say, hey, how are you, taking on, this challenge, or have you heard a little bit about this new regulation change? And we truly see that cooperation coming together as a credit union movement here locally, all the way through a national and global effort. Right? So pretty cool to be able to see that in action. All right. So some other examples of where you might have also seen cooperatives, right? So we in the credit union philosophy, we often hear people helping people, right? In terms of the credit union philosophy, but we wanted to provide a couple other examples of where you may have seen cooperatives that you might have thought of actively, or you may have said, hey, I went to one of these stores before and I didn't realize it was also a part of a cooperative. Who remembers the Got Milk campaign? Or Got Milk campaign, right? Right? What dairy farm formed the Got Milk campaign?
Sinton?
What's that?
Sinton?
Was it Sinton? Was it one specific one?
National Dairy.
There you go. All right. So it was the National Dairy Farmers, right? So united together, right? That cooperative spirit, right? Whoever has gone into an Ace Hardware. We're going into an Ace Hardware, buy some supplies, right? That is a cooperative, right? So we get the different suppliers coming together. We have REI, so if you go up into Denver, there's REI, right? So if I do your rock climbing, camping, all that fun stuff, that's a cooperative, right? Coming together to be able to provide services, products to the greater membership or the population to serve. So these are some different cooperative examples that go along with what we do at a credit union.
We wanted to touch on some of the ways that we come together as a group of credit unions and help support our community. And so some of the things that we have are, we have a cornhole tournament every year, and those can benefit, local cooperatives or local organizations. We've worked with the Pueblo Cooperative Care Center. We've worked with Parkview or UC Health in their children's department as well. And so we come together, raise funds, and then help support our community. We've also hosted coat drives for I don't know how many years to support the Pueblo Cooperative Care Center, and they give away every single coat that we're able to take in. So there's a true need in our community. And then we've had a lot of successful toy drives as well, and that's a real fun one to do at the holidays. And those go to benefit families that are struggling financially, or maybe families that are having medical issues and they're stuck in the hospital at the time. We've also partnered a lot with Care and Share. That's another good organization that we can all get behind. We're committed to doing our part and providing a helping hand in our community. We are passionate. After all, this is our home too. talked about membership as a benefit because a lot of employers choose to offer credit union membership as a benefit to their employees. And so I looked up today that 70% of Americans are still struggling financially, and we're probably headed into tough times here in the next few weeks. And credit unions really offer affordable and attainable financial products. Because we're locally centered, we're able to be responsive to the needs of our community, responsive to the needs of our members. And so we're able to offer solutions that the mega banks just can't, that aren't customized to the community. A lot of the credit unions also offer financial literacy classes for employer groups that are looking to provide their employees with a little bit more education or ways to improve their financial health.
All right. So, have you ever thought about what does it take to start a business account? You ever had that question? What does it take to start a business? What does it take to start a personal account? So, if you come into a credit union or a bank, financial institution, what does it typically take to start a personal account, do you think?
Driver's license.
Driver's license. Does a business have a driver's license?
Kinda.
Kind of, right? So we're talking a little bit about business 101 in terms of what it takes to be able to look and say, okay, what if I'm looking at establishing my organization, my business account, things of that nature at a credit union? There's some unique benefits that tie to that membership, right? To be able to look and say, member-owned, that financial cooperative. But at the end of the day, what do I need to be able to do? What do I need to prepare to take into my financial institution? And that can vary, right, depending on what institution that you're going into. But oftentimes there's kind of a set criteria that we need to look at from a financial institution perspective. Say, hey, we're doing our due diligence to make sure that member or that business organization that's walking through the doors, they are who they say they are, right? So for the member perspective, or the owner of the business, yep, we'll use that driver's license, right? We got to make sure we meet that USA Patriot Act requirement that comes through that. But then from the business side, then what are those next levels, right? The next criteria. So often things that we'll ask for are going to be things like your articles of organization, or your statement of trade name, things of that nature that will be filed with the Secretary of State. A certificate of good standing, right? So I often consider that being like your birth certificate of the business, right? That's the birth certificate side. And then you also get issued, as an individual, you have a social security card, right? So a business, instead of a social security card, you get your EIN letter from the IRS.gov. Right? Who loves the IRS? Anybody here love the IRS? How much does it cost to file an EIN number on the IRS.gov? Zero, right? One of the one times the IRS doesn't take some money from you, right? So that's a pretty good win, right? So you can go to irs.gov, you can file your EIN there, pretty simple process. If you go to a lawyer, typically they'll charge you $500 to file this, right? And so there's different ways to be able to look at it. There's benefit to often going to a legal advisor, but there is the ability to do it yourself, right? To be able to do that. So you bring those in, right? You want to bring in your EIN letter, have your articles of organization, those types of things. And then oftentimes there's going to be some other maybe questions, a membership application, a business account questionnaire, to get an idea of saying, okay, well, what is this organization doing in the community? What types of transactions should we anticipate? Can we support these types of transactions, right? Does our credit union structure or infrastructure, does it make sense to help support this business that's coming in? And if not, saying, hey, can we leverage that maybe to a different credit union or different financial institution to meet those needs? So it's starting to get to know that relationship, understanding who's that member, that business owner that's coming into the organization, and seeing how we can best serve their needs. Okay. Anything else to add to that, especially from a lending perspective, different things to prepare for?
Well, I would say that you need to make sure you have entity documents. So if it's an LLC or other kind of partnership, you need to have an operating agreement or a partnership agreement, or if it's a corporation, you need to have bylaws. Because that's what tells us as the financial institution who has the authority to sign on behalf of your entity, who's given them. So in addition to that, I would just say that full agreement.
Very nice. Thank you.
Okay, we wanted to touch a little bit on credit unions and personalized service and lower fees and better rates. Business owners are experts at whatever it is that they do, whether that's a product or a service. And we're financial experts, and so business owners should be able to run their business and do what they're good at, and let credit unions do what we're good at, and make things easy for your business, or make things easy for your employees, or both. So, we really offer that personalized, individualized service for both businesses and members. And then lower fees and better rates. We are not-for-profit financial cooperatives. We do not make a profit like a bank does. So that means all of our profits have to go back to our member owners, and that's usually through lower loan rates, higher deposit rates, and less fees. And so it puts more money in the pocket of the consumer, and it also keeps more money in the bottom line of the business. So we see it as a win-win for credit unions and small businesses.
Along with that, we want to make sure that we're staying competitive, supportive for businesses and individuals by providing unique products and services, financial services that they can get, mobile deposit capture, bill pay, oftentimes, especially when you look at some of our larger credit unions and partners, things even like merchant services, payroll services, larger, credit lending options, things of that nature. So we look and say, how can we continue to support as a financial cooperative, supporting those members, those businesses that are coming into our community, and then also looking at it from a scale standpoint, right? So oftentimes we help to support members that might be starting out a business, not necessarily maybe as their main business, right? Maybe it's their side hustle, right? Something that they're doing on the side, and they have hopes to be able to build that and continue to grow that. So saying, okay, can we help support that now with being able to provide an account that doesn't have, a huge amount of service fees or minimum requirements to keep the account open, right? So different ways to make it easier for business owners and entrepreneurs in our community. So scaling that as well as it continues to grow. And then the other aspect, when we look at a credit union, right, in terms of saying, what is our field of membership? How can someone become an actual member of a credit union? And oftentimes we see what's called a select employer group, or a SEG group, or a community-based field of membership, or a little bit of both. So you might also have an organization to say, okay, well, hey, I want to provide the benefit to my employees to become a member of a credit union. Oftentimes a credit union, you can have that conversation with them, and you can become actually a part of their charter as a select employer group. So when you look through, the credit unions that I had listed before, historically in terms of, in town, things of that nature, we have a lot of those unique select employer groups, right? So somebody worked at an employer, and because of that, they had the ability to become a member at a credit union. And we can continue that today as well. So different things to be able to consider and say, hey, how can I reach out to my local credit union to not only provide a benefit for myself or my organization, but extend that to employees. And so that comes into our scale aspect as well, and different things to be able to consider what we can do as a credit union. Anything else to add?
No, membership is huge. Like being able to establish membership is really a key to being able to get a loan from a credit union. We and we're a Colorado credit union. We do some commercial lending out of state, but it has to be a member that's here in Colorado, based in Colorado, and one of the counties that we service. So just making sure that you can establish membership is huge. Work with your credit union. There's a lot of different ways that we can look to see how we can get you added as a member.
Well, we wanted to take the opportunity to open it up for questions and answers related to businesses, starting that out, organizations, lending. We got an incredible lending expert here with us today. I'll focus in on those items there. So what can we help answer when it comes to the credit union difference?
So I got something.
Yes,
We've been looking at a lot of different business things. We've been to a couple different business, I guess summits or whatever they talk about, corporate debt or credit, right? So how you can, as a business, go buy a vehicle on just the business on the EIN. But then when you come into a bank or credit union or whatever and you start to develop that relationship, you kind of back it on your social security number, but then you kind of switch over to an EIN, right? So at what point does like a credit union or really anything start to just look at the EIN for lending or for like say buying a vehicle or whatever, to where it's not anymore on the person's credit?
Okay. So I can tell you specifically from our underwriting platform what we look at. when it goes from a company from a person to a company.
Yeah.
So every single transaction, every single request is gonna be different. 97% of the loans that we do at Ent are recourse, meaning that there is a personal guarantor associated with that. So it is a loan in the name of your business, tied to that EIN number for the business. But the people, the flesh and blood that are the owners of the business, still personally guarantee the loan.
And that shows up still on their credit, potentially?
Potentially. Potentially it shows up on their credit. I would say probably 90% of the time, it doesn't, we don't report it.
Okay,
Like, it's not something that we report to the credit agencies if you are just a guarantor on a loan.
sure.
It's just our ability to have that personal guarantee if something goes bad with the business, right?
Got it.
So most any financing you do from a company standpoint is not gonna actually show on your personal credit report.
I see. Cause yeah, they discussed that on, that you actually have like a credit score as a business. And kinda how to build that and develop that stuff, right?
There is a way to score the business, to credit score the business. There's a whole set of companies that does a business credit score.
Yeah,
And we do have one lending platform that is an unsecured lending platform, and what it does, it almost uses AI. And instead of all of the years of tax returns that we typically have to get in to underwrite any type of a lending request, it goes off of your bank statements.
so it's just looking at like cash flow and if you can afford it that way.
Yep. And then it's scored, the company is scored with its credit score, and then the rate and everything is determined by whatever that credit score is, whatever the health of their finances are,
Yeah.
and then the loan is done.
Through.
Oftentimes as credit unions as well, yeah, great question. We'll be presented with what's called loan participations, so it'll be larger. Oftentimes it's going to be based off of some type of like a real estate loan, things like that, or venture. And so multiple credit unions will come together and do a participation on it. And so in that evaluation as well, like you said, we have a guarantor, so you'll look at seeing what's the profitability of the business, if it's a rental property or something of that nature, what's the cash flow of that property, in addition to what can the individuals that are guaranteeing, what can they do to back it up if this fails, right? So what does their liquidity look like, what do their assets look like, and that picture is brought together to say, okay, will we approve this or not, and then based off of that full risk component evaluating it. So personal credit score would be a piece of it, as well as the business organization coming together.
Right, so in real estate, you start seeing that as people develop LLCs for each property.
Correct.
Right, so you'd actually look at potentially their personal plus their 1, 3, 5, 7 LLCs that are all real estate based as a portfolio and then lend off of
Exactly.
what the cash flow as a whole looks like or whatever.
Exactly. You interested in coming to underwriting?
It's property specific and then global.
Correct.
Okay.
I'll get to it.
So is it the same for an LLC or a sole proprietor?
In terms of which aspect?
Like he was asking if it goes on the personal credit report, would it do that if it was a sole proprietor?
Well, that's a great question. Overall, when you're looking at kind of a business structure, right? So sole proprietor is you as an individual, right? You take on that liability yourself as well, versus an LLC where it starts to limit that liability and then it separates it out. So it'd be much more likely, like if you're a business signer or an authorized user, that would most likely show up on a credit report versus an LLC, and then it could defer back, which was kind of what you've seen there. But I'd most likely see a tendency for that to show up more so than an LLC or a corporation where you have a little bit more of that separation.
And it depends on how your CPA has set it up,
Right.
right? So it depends on how you want to file. So you spoke to the LLCs and how people form all of these LLCs.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that they've separated it from themselves from a tax standpoint. A lot of the times those flow through to what's called a Schedule E, or they can be on a Schedule C of the tax returns.
Sure.
So it kind of depends on how the taxes are reported. Are they reported to your social, or do you actually file business tax returns for that LLC? Is it separate from that?
Like a single owner LLC versus others and things like that. Consult your tax advisor. Yeah, great questions. What else?
We don't want to let you go too soon.
Of course.
So, standard banks, you've unions have something. Could you elaborate?
Would you like to take on that something?
Sure. So we have NCUA, which is the equivalent of FDIC, National Credit Union Administration. It works in the same capacity. It's backed by the government. It insures your accounts up to $250,000. Retirement accounts are insured separately. And there's also some ways to structure your accounts in terms of joints and beneficiaries that can expand your insurance beyond the $250,000 limit. But we are insured the same as banks, just a different umbrella.
This is kind of a follow-on question, and it's above my pay grade. But, so I know that the big banks are required to do stress testing. Is there an equivalent thing that you guys do?
The assurance, asset liability management, or ALCO meetings, ALCO committees. We do a lot of different stress testing under that in situations. Some of it which we lived through in 2020, right? 2021, because a lot of the stress testing says, well, what if rates jump, 3% over this time horizon, and you're looking back in 2017, that's not gonna happen. Ta-da! 2020 arrives, and then it goes through a shock test. So yes, there's shock testing that occurs. Different ways. There's also enterprise risk management that often happens. So looking at different aspects within a credit union beyond rates and things of that nature. So saying, okay, well, what if this occurs, and how do I respond? Business continuity, things of that nature. What if we had, one branch that became flooded and not be able to use? What do I use for business continuity? So stress testing from like a rate structure, financial standpoint, but then also actually like business continuity standpoint. And then we have NCUA, Department of Regulatory Agencies. They like to come in and visit us every couple of years and help ensure that we keep on top of those things. Great questions.
If you're an established business already, you maybe already have a banking partnership, and you already have a line of credit or a loan there. If you want to become a member under your business, what does that look like transitioning? Can you transition everything over in terms of the lending as well as the accounts? Kind of what could that process look like?
Sure, yeah, you absolutely can. You just have to qualify,
Gotcha.
right? So it's a process. But most of the time, I'm gonna say probably 99% of the time, I'm a number girl, can you tell? We can get you qualified. If you had a line of credit somewhere else, most likely you're what we call bankable. And so we can look at getting you a new line of credit. But we always advise our members, don't close out your line of credit until your new one is in place. And if you take nothing else from this, please take with you, ask for money before you need it. If you have a business and it's doing well, that's when you should ask for a line of credit for the times that it's not doing so well. Don't ask for money when you need it, which seems very counterintuitive, but it's true. Ask for money before you need it.
Similar to personal lending as well. Right? So
Yeah.
It's easier to get credit when you don't need it versus when you need it. So, yep.
And we will take such good care of you, you won't even know that you switched when you switch. Yeah.
Thank you.
Our credit union will work very hard to make sure that you're treated well. So if you're not in Verba Credit Union, you should totally check it out.
Great questions. What else? I know we're keying into questions over here. All right, you ready? Awesome. Any follow-up questions? Good?
Good.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much
Great.
for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Woo.